Eyewitness accounts from people who claim to have gone beyond the veil of death, only to return to this world with an urgent message that you need to hear. For today's guest, a sudden illness led to a near-death experience that would instantly catapult him to a dark and terrifying place until Jesus lifted him out and showed him the glory of heaven. Get a shocking revelation followed by a message of grace and hope as Howard Storm shares his incredible experience of death, rescue, and resurrection today on Jewish Voice. We're focusing this series of programs on the afterlife because this is a message that I believe everyone needs to hear. You need to hear it, and you need to tell your friends. I want to begin by talking about your life before you had this experience, because I think that really helps to set up how dramatic this whole thing was. Talk about that.
Well, the experience happened in June 1st, 1985. I was a 38-year-old university professor at Northern Kentucky University, and I was also the department head. Married, had 2 kids. Simply put, I had faith in science. All of my friends believed that there was no God, there was no religion, was all a lot of hocus pocus and superstition, and we were all quite vocal about it. I mean, we were diehard atheists.
So you thought, what did you believe happened after you die?
I didn't believe. We all knew that we were a biochemical, electrical entity, you know, and that when it ended, it ended. It was just over. That was it. That's all there was.
Okay, so now take us to that moment in Paris, France. You're on vacation.
No, art
1985.
Tour.
You're on an art tour,
yeah.
And what happens?
At 11 o'clock in the morning, the day before the end of our trip, we'd been away 3 weeks, I had a perforation of the duodenum. I didn't know that at the time, but basically I had the most acute pain I'd ever experienced in my life happen right in the center of my belly, inside my belly. Dropped me down to the ground, kicking, screaming in terror because I didn't know what was going on. I went unconscious after 10 hours, couldn't take the pain anymore. And I couldn't, I was struggling to exist, which primarily meant breathing, struggling to breathe. And I couldn't do it anymore. So I went unconscious, and then I awoke from that unconsciousness, and the pain was gone. And I'm like, I'm so happy. I mean, like I'm better. And I'm standing there next to the bed, and to my confusion and horror, there's something in the bed that looks exactly like me. And I knew it was me, but I knew that it wasn't alive anymore.
So like what we see on television where they're hovering over their body and seeing, you're actually standing next to your body and seeing your body laying on the bed.
Yeah, but it's scary. It's horrifying because, you know, it's impossible. That can't be happening. And then I heard people outside the room calling me by name. So the room was bright and lit. And I went over to the doorway of the room, and there were people out in the hall, and it was shadowy and gray. And they were staying back in the shadows, and they were saying, "Hurry, Howard, hurry, come with us. We can't wait any longer." And I'm saying, you know, I'm sick. I need a doctor. I need surgery. And they're saying, "We don't have time for this. You've got to come with us. We know all about you. We've been waiting a long time." And so my assumption is that they were going to walk me to surgery.
So you followed the voices.
Right.
And at this point, you think you're still alive.
Oh, yeah. I felt more alive than I've ever felt in my whole life. My eyesight, my hearing, my taste, my touch, all my senses were heightened. They take me on this long journey, these people, and I later came to believe that they were people who had lived in this world, and they were the escort service to take them into the world that they had gone to after they died, and it got increasingly darker and darker and darker, and I was just so terrified by being with them, and I knew this was not good. I knew wherever I was, I was not in Paris, it was not the hospital, and we weren't going any further. The only problem was that I had no idea where it was. Complete abject darkness. I didn't know which way to go. And they said, "You're almost there," and they started to push and pull at me, and so I fought back.
So you're
with them.
walking into this, and it's getting darker and darker.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
And as I fought with them, that excited them. And their excitement was to start biting and scratching and tearing, and that was just the introduction to doing more things that were more horrible, more invasive.
You said the pain left. But were you experiencing pain while this was happening?
Yeah, and it was horrible. It was horrible, literally being torn apart.
Where did you think you were?
I came to the conclusion that I had lived an unsatisfactory life, a bad life, as I thought of. This was just a little bit later into the experience. I thought about that I'd not been a good son, I'd not been a good father, I'd not been a good teacher, I'd never been the great artist that I thought I was going to be. I was a failure as a person. And I realized, and this is very hard for me to say this, but I realized that these people were people like me who had rejected God and rejected everything about God.
Did it begin to occur to you, I've died?
Oh, yeah.
I'm in the wrong place?
The way that I thought about it, and excuse me for being so vulgar, but the way I thought about it is that I had been flushed down the sewage system into the cesspool of the universe.
So now the reality hits.
Yeah.
I'm dead and I'm in the wrong place.
Yeah. But the problem was I felt, the weird thing was I knew on the inside that I belonged there.
The Bible says without excuse.
Yeah.
And you knew that.
Yeah.
Without excuse.
Yeah.
Now something happens then that changes everything. You hear an audible voice.
I hear an audible voice which sounded like my voice, but I wasn't saying it. It said, pray to God, and I thought, I don't believe in God. And it said, pray to God, and I thought, I don't know how to pray. And it said, pray to God, and I thought, when I was a kid, I prayed. When I was a little boy, I'd gone to church, and we'd learned prayers. And I'm trying to remember prayers, and I can't remember much, just little bits and phrases. And as I began to mutter these things, just simply trying to remember them, the people around me became very, very agitated and angry. And they were saying, there is no God, nobody can hear you, and now we're going to make it much worse for you than what we've done already. But I also noticed that by mentioning God, it drove them away from me. They absolutely could not bear to be in the presence of any mention of God whatsoever.
Howard is going to tell us when we come back what happened when he was unexpectedly given a get-out-of-jail-free card, escaping the hopelessness and torment that he thought was going to last forever. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
In that desperation, I remembered being a child and sitting in a Sunday school classroom and singing, Jesus Loves Me. And not only did I remember those words, but I remembered as a child believing in something other than myself. What that represented to me was something good, something big and powerful and other. And I remembered as a child that I used to pray to God, pray to Jesus, and that I believed that would keep me safe and protect me. And I had nothing else going for me. This is pure desperation. And so I called out to him and I said, Jesus, please save me. And in the hope that he might still be, he might still exist, he might remember me. With that,
Your only hope.
My only hope.
Clearly at this point.
And he came to me and he reached down in that darkness. He was bathed in brilliant white light. So I saw myself and I was all gore. I was just a mass of gore.
So as soon as you called out to his name, he came.
Yeah. And he
into the abyss.
Yeah, and he reached down and he touched me and all that gore disappeared and I was made whole. But much more important than that, the pain and the gore and all that went away, but he filled me with a love that I can't possibly begin to describe because there are no words adequate to express his love for us. And I want to add this, that not only did I know he loved me, but I knew that he really liked me and cared about me. I mean, he didn't love me in some sort of condescending, superior way. I mean, it was like, all of a sudden, I just found the best friend I've ever had in my whole life and have today. You know, the one who really knows me. More than my mother, more than, my wife, he knows me and loves me.
And he took you somewhere.
Yeah, and so we left that place. We just went directly up and out. And I'm like, whoa, this is really cool, we're moving. And we were going faster and faster and faster. And off in the distance, I saw a world of light. And I had my huge because all of a sudden, like, God, heaven, we're going there, this is not good. And the reason why I felt it was not good, because I felt that I was such filth, I was such garbage, so unworthy. I said to myself in my own mind, without speaking this, I said, he's made a terrible mistake. I don't belong here, meaning heaven. And with that, we stopped, and he spoke to me for the first time, and he said, we don't make mistakes. You do belong here.
I don't even know what to ask next time. So yeah. This is just, it really hits deep. What'd you see around you?
Well, we had left this world of abject darkness, and off was this impossibly brilliant, vast world of light, which we did not enter into. We were stopped outside of it. And he called out, and angels came and stood around us, and he said that they wanted to show me my life.
So you're starting to feel better about yourself at this point?
Well, yeah, because I got all this attention there. Everybody's so nice and kind, and they start showing my life, and the happiness of my mother and father. My father came back from the Pacific after World War II, and he had a baby boy, and it was me, and and what a thrill. And then as life went on, I saw how this dysfunctional family was interacting, and I was becoming more isolated emotionally from my family, and how I was becoming more and more manipulative, and I saw myself as a 15-year-old rejecting the church, rejecting the faith.
So Howard, you're watching your life literally as a movie before you?
Absolutely, and not only did I see my life, but I could also see like my mother's feelings and how I hurt her. I never wanted to hurt my mother. I could see how I hurt God. Jesus is sharing his emotional pain with my rejection of him and of God.
So he gives you an education about your nature, doesn't he, and the meaning of life.
Yeah, and I was so glad when my life review was over, because as a teacher, I came to the conclusion that whatever my life was supposed to have been, which at this point I was still clueless, what should I have done, I realized that I had flunked the course, the big fat F, failure. And he said, do you have any questions? And I said, I got a million questions. And he said, ask what you want. So I asked everything I could think of to ask, and he answered everything patiently, carefully, and kindly.
We got to take another break, Howard. When we return, what happened when Jesus told Howard that it was time for him to return to earth? We'll be right back. At some point, Jesus says it's time to return. It's time to go back to earth.
Well, yeah, I had said to him, I said, I want to go to heaven, because I'd asked him questions about heaven, and he'd told me things and showed me things about heaven. Heaven is, this is such a poor way to describe it, but it is the fun center of the universe.
But you never actually went to heaven.
No.
You were in some other place.
But I mean, anybody who knew about heaven would want to go there. I mean, it's a no-brainer, absolute no-brainer. I mean, my dog would want to go to heaven, if you could understand. So anyways, when he said that, we had a big argument, and I tried to argue as forcefully as I possibly could with all of my best arguments about not sending me back to this world, because I wanted to go to heaven, and he countered my arguments with his better arguments about why that wasn't going to happen, and I needed to come back and live a life that would make me suitable.
That was a disappointment.
Huge disappointment.
That you had to come back to this earth, and we're all fighting to hang on to life here. Tell us the most valuable lessons that you learned when you were with Jesus.
God is very disappointed in what we've done, because God has sent the prophets and the teachers to teach the people how to be the children of God. And many of them, not everyone, but many of them turned their back and failed to learn. So God said, all right, I'm sending myself, my son, I'm sending the Christ, and he's not only going to teach you, but he's going to show you. And he's going to do the work so that you will all be guaranteed salvation if you listen to him. The world has overwhelmingly rejected that. But when you ask Jesus, Jesus, give me patience, give me compassion, give me faith, give me some insight into why I'm here, give me a purpose in life. When you ask him for those things, if you really want it, he will give it to you. He'll give you anything you want.
Howard, it's so simple because it's all in the book.
Yeah.
Thank you for being with us and sharing your story. Really very moving. Howard has written a book called My Descent into Death, A Second Chance at Life. And in this book, he shares in a lot more detail lessons that he learned while he was with Jesus. And
Where?
I felt like I was fading away. Next thing I knew, off in the distance, I saw white light.
Jim Anderson was dying from a massive heart attack. The only signs of trouble came a year earlier, but his doctor called the symptoms stress-related. Jim was working 12-hour days as a supervisor at a wastewater treatment plant. But this time, Jim knew it was much more than stress.
I was resting in my bedroom, and all of a sudden I had a crushing pain in my chest, and the pain radiated down the arm, up the side of the neck. Couldn't catch my breath. And I called to my daughter. I said, "You're going to have to get me to the hospital. I'm not going to make it."
A balloon catheter was inserted into his artery. He was stabilized and placed on a heart transplant list. But 2 days later, Jim flatlined.
I could see everyone rushing into the room, but I couldn't hear the alarms going off. It's like I had gone underwater. The hearing had just faded away. That's when I began to pray. I knew I was dying. It wasn't a scared praying. It was earnest to take care of my family. As I prayed, it got darker to the point it went black. Next thing I knew, off of this distance, I saw white light. It was beautiful. Just wasn't blinding, but pure, perfect. As I started to go towards the light, I could see the outer edge of it begin to spiral. And I couldn't figure out what that was. But as I got closer, I could see it was the words of prayers revolving. The words broke off, going into the light. And I followed into the light. The next thing I felt was being embraced, safe and secure. It felt wonderful. It felt like total love. Next thing I knew, I was looking down the room where my body was. I could see everyone working on me. I could hear what they were saying. There were 2 nurses outside of the room looking in. One said to the other, "Why are they working so hard? He's gone. If they do bring him back, he'd be a vegetable." I later on told her what she said. She about passed out. Then I thought to myself, "Where's Debbie?" And instantly I was in the room where she was.
And I'd just gotten finished with that prayer. He's yours, Lord, because I knew that was the only way he was coming back to us. God wanted him to.
When she did that,
He's yours.
I zoomed right in on her face.
He's yours.
When I saw her face, I saw every aspect of our life together. From the first day we met, our marriage, the birth of our children, all the emotions we've shared. I couldn't leave her. I just couldn't leave her. And I cried out to the Lord. I said, "Lord, I love you so much, but please let me go back." I said, "My wife needs me. My children need me so much. Please let me go back."
The doctors and nurses didn't give up. They shocked Jim so many times that the flesh on his chest was burned. Then, the doctors heard a heartbeat.
I came back to a world of pain. They shocked me so many times. It's like coming back out of the water. Just my hearing came back. I could hear them telling me, "I can't believe it, he's back, he's back." I said, "Can you hear me?" And I took that first breath on my own. Have you ever tasted honeysuckle? That's exactly what that first breath tasted like. It was so sweet, so wonderful, and I just thanked the Lord.
Jim was alive, but his heart still wasn't functioning properly.
They put him into a coma, a Medicaid coma, and to allow his body to heal. So I wasn't able to talk to him for days.
Jim spent the next 17 days in intensive care. He flatlined several more times, and each time, Jesus asked him a question.
The subsequent times that I arrested and would go towards the light, he would ask, "Are you sure this is what you want?" And each time I would ask to come back.
Jim woke up from his medical-induced coma. His heart increased in function from 5% to 30%. He no longer needed a heart transplant.
It was a long process, but basically it was good to hear his voice again. Very good to hear his voice again.
His doctor implanted a pacemaker in his chest. Just a couple of days later, Jim was able to make it home in time for his daughter's graduation. One doctor told Jim he only had a year to live. That was over 7 years ago.
It's brought us closer together, so much closer together. We talk about things now, and it's whatever needs to be done for the day, it's done. You know, we don't focus on things that are trivial.
Jim knows that every day he has with his family is a blessing from Jesus Christ.
I try to witness to at least one person a day, to let them know this isn't about me. It's about their life. And to know that He is there for them. That He loves them.